Hey guys, welcome back to the Be the Man podcast. Man, it has been a long time.
It's been a hot minute, brother.
It's hard to believe
been a hot minute.
that it's October the 20th, and I don't even remember when the last episode was.
It seemed like October just got taken from us,
Yeah,
brother. It really did. I think this has been, in some ways, the shortest October I've ever lived, but in some ways, the longest October I've ever lived, and I'm sure if you're in Western North Carolina or anywhere around here, you can understand what I'm saying. It's been a big deal, hasn't it, Eli?
It has. We're coming on the wake, if you will, or the aftermath of probably the most historic hurricane that's, I'd say arguably, hit this region or hit the country ever.
Absolutely so, man. I shared in the pulpit Sunday that I've lived here all my life, 56 years. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Never anticipated anything like it. And, man, it's just been a big deal. It's been a very big deal. Now, we have missed you guys on this Be the Man podcast. We've been doing some other stuff media-wise, so check that out. We've been on our 40 Days Toward Fitness, promoting some of that prayer, and it's no accident. We can touch on God's providence and all this a little bit, in just a few minutes. But it's good to get right back here to talk to you guys. What we want to do today is maybe give you an idea of what we've been doing, and maybe encourage you in the days ahead, wherever you find yourself in the world, because everybody has ministry opportunity, and wherever you find yourself in the world, to plug into what the Lord's doing and take advantage, leverage those circumstances for ministry to your family. We're all about being the man here. We're all about taking care of our bride, taking care of our family, ministering to the workplace, all those things that we articulate about. I want to be the man of God that He wants me to be in those situations. So I think family-wise, Eli, through this challenge of these last 3 weeks, I think the biggest impact that I've seen is family.
Yeah.
It's been a family time. You had to go stay with your family. You had to pool your resources. Your community became your family. There's just so many beautiful things that have happened in these moments. So being the man really took on a very practical,
Really did.
a very practical aspect, brother, in these days.
Yeah, and then the thing that added to the complicated nature of this was the night that this storm happened, really the morning of, whenever things woke up, you had no internet, you had no cell signal, so you really had to jump in the car and try to go. Hope and I tried to go find her family and make sure they were okay, and then couldn't get to mom and dad's house. So it's like you don't know because there's no cell signal, and it was a very, very unsettling kind of thing to be in that moment.
I would agree with you, man. It started off, that was the first concern.
Yeah.
And I know we have a lot of listeners who don't live here, so
it's true.
We've been places to minister to folks in natural disasters. This is probably the first time that I've ever had one happen in my backyard.
Yeah.
Especially a hurricane. In the mountains, that's just not what you
They're
anticipate.
supposed to go away.
You're supposed to be hurricane-proof up here.
Yeah.
But not so. It was really a challenge. But I'm with Eli. Your mind first ran to, where are my people?
Yeah.
I can't communicate with them. And we can talk even about that a little bit, because that was scary.
It was.
Not to be able to know if everybody was okay. But then it became kind of a beautiful thing. So maybe we can talk about that in a minute, the beauty of not being so connected for a few moments. But it was a big deal. Yeah, the first days, the first moments, I'm with you, Eli. My mom and dad live up on the hill, and I'm thinking, well, as soon as I can, I got to fight my way through the woods because the roads were gone. I'm not going to drive there. I just had to get there the best I could just to see that they were okay, and that's a pretty big deal. I had my daughter. I don't know how she got to my house. But she and Nick decided we're checking on mom and dad. We're making sure they're okay. So once it was a family connection, and I think that underscores, maybe we've seen, like I say, in this moment, the opportunity to be the man in our lives just laid wide open before us. I'm glad that we didn't wait, Eli, till those moments to start trying it, that we were already in those modes and already in those mindsets of taking care of each other.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate something Pastor Colby told me today, and he said this to the church today. It's so cool to see, amidst all the things that have happened, the community really has come together. I was talking to a dear friend from here at the church. He said, I met a neighbor I didn't even know I had.
Amen.
Just working, the people you never knew that were right down the road, people that you worked with that you have to really become close with in these moments in the community has been so closely tied.
It's been phenomenal.
It has
been phenomenal. And I think maybe, Eli and I are just, this is so unscripted today, guys. This is. We've just missed you. I'll say that. As much as physically it's been good to be back in people's presence, this is something I've been looking forward to, is just sitting down here. And the Lord ordained this moment for us to do this and throw this podcast out. But maybe, Eli, we talk about, this storm came through here, and it kind of stripped a lot of stuff away. You're talking about stripping land through debris slides and debris movements and all this stuff. Some houses are gone. I mean, what you see on the news, if you're not here, what you see on the news probably isn't even doing justice to what is here around every hand's turn. You can drive anywhere within 50 miles of where we're sitting, and you're going to still see cars just tore all to smash. There's an island on Cane Creek that runs near our church here. There's an island where there wasn't an island. The creek just made itself the river just made itself a new path, and now these folks have an island on their property because it's just going to be that way. So you can see how it's colored the landscape and stripped everything away a little bit, and that's really scary in the physical.
It is.
But it did that almost in the spiritual, and certainly in the mental, the emotional, the relational. It stripped a lot of things that inhibit us. Okay, a lot of things we talk about on this podcast that we have to watch and manage that are distractions. Brother, they were gone in a drop of a hat. We didn't have that, and so maybe we talk about that, Eli, just a little bit about the nature of that first week, okay? Because Eli's right. I think the Lord gave him a cell signal because he lived as closest to the church. He was operating our distribution center, our receiving. The rest of us had no way of receiving a call. Somehow Eli had the signal, so the Lord just pressed him into service. He did a great job. But there was some challenges to not having that. But at the end of the day, the fact that all that was stripped away, all those communications, all that connection, technology-wise, was gone. It forced us to go back to, I got to communicate with somebody. I got to talk to somebody. All right, if I needed something from Fairview Fire Department, I'm going to just drive down there and try to talk to the chief there and see if we can't work something out to get this done. And it was beautiful. Eli's right, and Colby is right this morning in Sunday service. He was saying the community stepped up. Man, it has been phenomenal to see how people connected to each other. And maybe we talk about some of the good, Eli, that we've seen. What in your mind are some things that you've seen that we would, it sounds funny, but I've said it a few times. I've said it in the pulpit since these last 2 or 3 weeks. I hope we don't lose some of this that we've gained. What are some of the things that you see, Eli, that really, we could do that. We could make a practice of that on our own if we really, really wanted to, because we've proven that it can be done, and we can't live without these things. And in some ways, live better, live a more wonderful experience without these things that we think we just have to have. So what are those things that you see, Eli, and maybe a benefit of something, however the Lord leads you? What do you see good came out of this?
The first thing I think about, because it's fresh, Pastor, you just preached on this morning, was the amplitude of ministry opportunities that arose out of this. And Pastor gave us 6, that we're called to, and I don't want to recite all of them, but one of the things that really stuck out to me was that idea that we've got so many ministry opportunities right in front of us because of this hurricane. And there have been people, not too long ago, there was a young man came to the distribution center at the FLC, and he said, I didn't even know you had a church here. I've lived right up the road, and he comes by, and then anyway, all these kinds of things open up these doors of opportunity. And although this storm was pretty bad, it was awful.
People lost their lives. I'm not downplaying that at all.
And it was so catastrophic. But at the same time, with that, there were so many positive ministry opportunities that really opened up, not just for the pastors of the church, not for Pastor Stacey, but for the people of the ministry, to be involved. So
I think that's beautiful, Eli. I'll piggyback on that because I was walking around here I didn't get any power back, guys, till like a day or two ago. So I was 22 days.
3 weeks,
22 days without power. So showers were few and far between. I didn't shave a lot. So it was really cool to be here at the distribution site with my cinder leaf hat on and most people didn't know I was a preacher, man, and I didn't tell anybody. So it was really cool just for lay people and lay people, just human beings, to connect.
Yeah, that's true.
And just to minister to each other. So I was glad to be kind of have a little anonymity in that and be able just to minister as a man to another man, and or someone praying for families, or just helping somebody shop a little bit or making a run. You know, Eli and I both have been in our part of the county was hit hard, but a little bit to the north of us was devastated. So just to have that ministry opportunity to go in there and even see people there, just taking care of one another. The ministry opportunities have been phenomenal. They really have.
And the people that I've seen, even there's a quick another story I can think of. Right past Pastor Stacey's house, you go a little bit further north where a lot of the houses just got washed away.
Terrible.
The people there, in the midst of everything they lost, were still had the hearts of gold. They were being hospitable to
Absolutely.
a church member and myself. We were up there.
How can I help you? That's what I got. What can I do for you?
They were cooking off a camp stove, and we brought them some water and things. They said, "Can we make you a plate?"
Yeah, let me help you have something.
And man, it's really heartwarming, and it's hard to see those kinds of things, but it's also heartwarming to know that they're still connected with each other.
Absolutely.
And probably even more so than they ever have.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are some of the things that we want to try to hang on to.
Yeah.
And guys, if you're not here, maybe these are some of the things we're going to push you to, is we really didn't have to have. I mean, we made it. We really did. Without. Now, was I glad when the cell service came up and we could text? And for a while, all we could do was text.
Yeah,
you couldn't really hold a call.
You really couldn't do that.
No, for a few days. Yeah. For a while, you couldn't do anything. It was nothing. So I think that we've proven that we can live without it.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it forced human beings to communicate with each other face to face. So, guys, here's one of the things out there that you can take from this, whether you're in this zone or not, is that you can do without that more than you think you can. If it's gone, you don't just die. I have a great nephew he's a wonderful young man. He's 31 years old, and he's autistic, so he depends a lot on schedule, and a lot of it has to do with infrastructure, internet, power, water. He has a little schedule he goes by through the day. And to even watch him, Eli saw him. He was down here volunteering at our distribution center, and watch him after a day, kind of to say, okay, I guess I haven't got it.
Yep.
So he didn't only live without it. He did really good. He was down here talking to people. He was giving out stuff. He was stocking shelves. So guys, it really it inspires me. And honestly, Tammy and I have talked so much about this already. We need to take a day somewhere, a week,
it's good.
and let's get a sabbatical from this.
Yeah.
Listen, because we can do it. It's quite obvious that the world didn't end. I mean, it didn't. We kept right on going. And as a matter of fact, in some ways, it was better that we didn't have that pawing at us and pressing at us. I was able to go do what the Lord had in front of me in that moment. And how clearly, I think about this as another thing, how clearly I was able to hear him.
Yeah.
Say, Stacey, go do this. Okay. I mean, all right. I didn't have anything else pulling at me. So how clearly I was able to hear him and respond. Good. So we can do without that stuff. And I think it'd be good to take a sabbatical from it, guys, in the days ahead. Just an intentional, hey, get with your family and say, Mondays, guess what? I might have to have it for work, but that's it. I mean, coming home, I'm done. And Monday at 5, we're done till Tuesday morning. We're not fooling with that stuff. So I think that would be beneficial to our families, to our neighborhoods, because Eli's right. My neighbors, I've lived there forever. Some of them I haven't talked to in 5 years. I wave at them when I'm passing them, and I know them well. But we actually got out walking the road together every evening and just being with each other. It was really cool. So we can do better in that area of especially that constant connection and communication with things that pull us out of our primary assignment.
It's funny because a lot of and my generation's real bad about this, but we would, oftentimes before this hurricane hit, we'd text each other, and I rely on them and say, hey, I'll be there at this time or whatever. And I'll text you about when I'm 15 minutes away or whatever, that kind of thing. But throughout this process, we didn't have, cell signal or anything like that. And then somebody would just, show up at your house, or somebody would just say, all right, I'll be there at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And then you get there at 3 o'clock tomorrow, and they're there. Like, there's no communication about it via the internet.
It's old school, bro.
It's old school.
It's old school.
Say,
so I pull up the road. Oh, so-and-so's here. Here we go.
And
it's all good.
It is.
Hey, we came to Eli's house. Ted and I rolled up in the driveway.
Yeah,
and,
I think about that.
Say, guys, here we are.
Because usually, you'd be able to send a text or a call or something,
absolutely.
but to see you guys show up, and I mean,
something special about it, man.
Wow,
something very special.
There is something really cool about that.
So, that community connection, and I think beyond that, something that flows from that for me that's really big is how important people really are. In the grand scheme of things, I think it brought us back to realize that, our fellow human beings are pretty important, more important than anything. And to me, that is one of the things that we need to take away from this to enhance our ministry. And that is something that I hope we don't lose. And that I hope you guys out there listening, you ladies out there listening, realize people are important. Just because their power's back on here, or maybe you're not here, maybe make an intentional effort for people around you and start valuing them just a little more, and understand that you can take time to communicate with them, that it'll pay dividends if you just sow into them a little bit. They're going to need you. They're going to be open to your ministry efforts. So I think for me, another thing would be, guys, let's remember how important people are in our lives.
Well, and then the thing that you said this morning from the pulpit, it come back full circle, and it was so profound to me in a way that I really had never thought about it this way. When Jesus was talking to him in Luke chapter 4, Pastor was giving us all the things of the ministry that Jesus was laying out: the anointing, the restoring, the grace, the healing. And then at the very end of it, he said, if you really think about it, and not even if you think about it, just how it is all of these are people-oriented ministries.
Absolutely.
And for me to come back, and I kind of had to sit there a second and say, hang on, let me go through these things. Like, that is people-oriented. That's people-oriented. Mm-hmm. And to think that Jesus' intent was, not necessarily for some kind of other personal gain or anything like that. Obviously, it's for His glory. Absolutely. But for the people that He was ministering to.
Absolutely.
It's like, wow, and that's really what this has shown me a lot of.
At the end of the day, if some of the people didn't think He was the Messiah because He wasn't setting up a kingdom. Yeah. I mean, why are you setting up a kingdom if you're the Messiah? Well, it's not about a kingdom.
Yes.
It's about a kingdom you can't see. It's about people, that I love. So, that's exactly right, guys, that it is, this moment ought to teach us just certainly the value of human life itself, but
that's true.
The value of relationship, the way that the Lord works, because ministry is relational. Eli, I'll tell you, that's one of my paradigms. That's one of my foundational paradigms, is the definition of ministry to me is relationship. So you have to be relationally oriented, and you have to remember that isn't about a hierarchy. It isn't about a certain way of administrating stuff. You got to have all that to have order and to move forward and have a framework. But if it's hurting people, then there's a problem. Yeah. If your paradigms hurt people, you got to stop and say, what's going on? Because that was never Jesus' intent. And I think that's the thing I took from this thing as well, Eli, is that people mindset that we have now. Go right ahead, brother.
Well, and I think that one of the other things I think about in the whole grand scheme of this was how in the midst of all this chaos that happened, one of the first times we gathered here after the storm, we were just kind of getting this little distribution center together, and like you said in the pulpit, we could fit it on the portico.
Yeah, it was small.
But all these people were gathered around, and one of the most important things was, it wasn't necessarily trying to get the stuff in the gym or organizing it. It said, have you checked on so-and-so down the road?
Yeah. Have you seen so-and-so?
Have you seen that? Have you heard from this person?
Yeah.
The people.
How's your dad? Everybody's asking me, how's your dad?
Yeah, how's your family?
How's your neighbors? How's so-and-so? Have you heard from this? That's right, Eli. That's good, man.
Yeah, and the amount of people too that have been so, and that might be the third thing is just the gratitude that I have now at the end of this is, and the numbers and everything, like Pastor said, that they don't do it justice on the news, on the media. The death toll, all that stuff is far worse than we probably even know. Yeah. But to come back on the other side of it, and I know that some people can't say the same, which is what's heartbreaking, but to be at where I'm at, to be blessed, to be sitting here, to be ministering, to be in the church body today, it was really just to think about the goodness that God poured out. That's immense. And
I don't know. I mean, miracle after miracle, story after story. I told Eli, I said, we could tell hurricane stories for a year.
We could. Yeah.
And fill up the Be the Man podcast. I could tell you hurricane story after hurricane story. And most of them are nothing short of miraculous, honestly. And I know that seems very trite or very cliche, but it's the truth.
It really is.
Every day I've heard 2 or 3 stories of yesterday, and I wanted to make this personal. Yesterday was the first day. Let's talk about ministerial run that we've been on. I mean, the staff here, the volunteers here, the lay people, and it's not just us. Everybody in this area has been 24/7, really, on the dead run, trying to make sure people have what they need and where they are. And yesterday was the first day that I was home all day. And I was just down in the evening. It was about 5:30. And I was just standing down in a little pasture below my house, looking at a little barn we got there, and really what happened, after I'd cleaned a little bit around the house. Still not finished. I got a lot more to do, but I just had to stand there, and I was a little emotional thinking, God, you were good to me. In all this, I look back at what could have happened, what should have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got 8 or 10 trees down in a creek, mudslide off the bank. Why mudslide there and not where my house is?
Yeah.
Well, that's only the Lord. It's just His hand on us, and I can see when I talk to people. Nothing on my house, trees everywhere. Nothing on my house. Not everybody can say that, but they can say something.
Yeah.
Everybody has something that
true.
they say. Well, the Lord showed up in this way, this way, this way, and this way, and one little thing could have happened, and it could have been just total loss and total disaster, which some people have experienced. They've lost their homes. I mean, they're just not there anymore. Some people have lost their family. We have one guy that's 11 family members, I believe, at this point that he lost, and so it's tragic. It is. But even in that, I've heard, as Eli referred to, how many miraculous things God did. This one family lost 11, but there's stories about a guy that saved 4 people in ways that only the Lord could have empowered him to do, that a human being couldn't have done. And there's eyewitnesses to him doing stuff and carrying people and digging people out of debris by himself with his hands, not with a machine. I mean, while the debris is still flowing, he's digging people out. So there's miraculous thing after miraculous thing after miraculous thing that has happened in these moments, and we should be thankful. I mean, so many things that God has done. I think I've heard more and seen more in the last 3 weeks than I have in my collective 50 years of the way that God has moved and acted in people's lives in such a way. And Eli's right. It ought to spur us to say, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. And that's something you should take, guys, every day.
It's true.
Every day that we get up and breathe, every day that you have your wife, every day that your family is there and you're doing well, every day that you can go to work, every time you can draw that paycheck, every moment that you can spend on vacation or away or doing something at the lake or even an overnight camp with your kids, you ought to stop and say, God, thank you for your goodness. That's good, Eli, that gratitude.
And one of the things that I remember, Pastor, you telling me, we were sitting out there in the little holler down there outside his house, and it got me choked up because you were talking about, man, I was sitting there that night not sure what was going to come of the next day.
I didn't know.
And to be, I mean, we don't, like, my wife and I, Hope and I live out towards Arden, so it's a couple miles down the road, and it was definitely howling and it was rough out there, and we were scared and awake, but up to where his pastor lives, that wiped out entire communities, and I can't even imagine what you would have been thinking in that moment, because to be in that moment and what you said was like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and that kind of thing really, I mean, that I don't even know how to put that into words. That'll humble you.
Yeah, you just have to say, Lord, here I am. If today's your day, I'm ready. If not, then we'll do what we can in the days ahead. But it does make you thankful for the moment. It makes you say, Lord, maybe the things I think. There again, what's stripped away is what gets in the way of our gratitude and our perspective. That maybe the things I think, my 403B balance that I check every day, am I going to be able to live till I'm 90 on my savings? Well, it's good to think about, but you really shouldn't put that much effort and that much stake in on it. Just that daily opportunity to live and to move and to see that the Lord can use you in some way. You're right. My parents live right up on the hill. I was telling Eli, I didn't know what I was going to find. When I went up there the next day, I didn't know if we were going to be, in any way, shape, or form, moving the next day. It was pretty bad, but God is good. And in retrospect, it just makes me, we ought to be more gracious and people of more deep gratitude than we are.
Yeah, and in the be the man context too, to kind of wrap it back into a full circle. I've even seen and had to experience, trying to protect and provide and all those things, and see people just come together and really, and not even just for, not people say, well, I'm going to help my family, but how can I help your family?
And that's been the thing.
And it's been so cool.
Oh my gosh, that's been so good. So being the man, maybe one of our principles here is you have to have that others-oriented mindset.
Yes,
that's the core principle. Jesus said, love your wife as I've loved the church. And the way Jesus loved the church was, you're more important to me. I'm other-minded. My mind's on you, on your goodness, and on if you're good, on if you're okay, and providing providing your every need and loving you. That is my mindset, and that's our challenge, man. There's our driving force right there as this be the man principle kind of takes hold in our lives. It's others oriented.
Yeah, and really in the middle of it all, like Pastor said again, you said so many good things about this, how in the middle of the chaos, the Lord's still in the debris. He's in the details.
He's in the details,
and He's got it all figured out. Even when it seems like He's not there, He really is.
He was there, man. Yeah, in the midst of chaos, there He was. That's the way He operates in it. The chaos of our lives.
It is, yeah.
The decisions that we make that get us in a bind, there He is in the middle of it, just steady and in control and governing it all. So, yeah, man, guys, take that from us. If you're outside this area and picking this up, it's important today that maybe you express a little more gratitude to your wife and to your family when you go home, and to your Father in heaven. I mean, before you go to bed tonight, just somewhere, find a place to say, Lord, I love you, and how thankful I am for what I have. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think about it too. Just if you have a moment, it's never you never take those moments for granted when you can just give your bride a kiss or just give your family a hug. And
it's big.
And because for me, we were sitting there that night and awake most of the night and really not. You're like, man, this is really bad. Everybody told us about this storm, about this
worse than we thought it was going to be.
They said, well, it'll be catastrophic, but you're in the mountains thinking,
yeah, how bad is this really going to be?
I'm with Pastor. I've lived in West North Carolina.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking this. I guarantee
you had no idea. So to be in that moment and to think, wow, this is something serious. But to know that, that not only the Lord was with us, but after the fact, the Lord's still here, He's still working, He is restoring. So I'm hoping we can get back to doing some regular podcasts. So let's stay tuned to that.
I want to leave this with you, too. This is something that the Lord told me early. It just gave me so many nuggets just that morning when this was over and through the night. But, as a pastor, you always think, and as a man, you're always thinking, is my family going to be okay? I want to provide for them. I want to take care of them, even in every storm of life. But, that when the smoke cleared that day, and I could actually see a little bit in my own little neighborhood, I was afraid of what happened elsewhere. And when I could see what had happened right there at my house, my own little holler. When I say neighborhood in the loosest terms, it's a
holler.
It's a rural neighborhood. It really is. It's out there, folks. So it isn't a housing development. Let's put it that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just isn't. But I can remember thinking, Lord, what are we gonna do? I don't know if we're gonna have enough to do this. I don't know how we're ever going to produce enough. I don't know if we got enough man hours. I don't know if we got enough time. How many people lost their lives at that point? I didn't know. I felt sure somebody had, but I didn't know. And I thought, Lord, we're not going to have enough. We're not going to have enough to do it. And He whispered in my spirit, Stacey, I'm more than enough always. So I want to leave you with that, guys, out there, that no matter what you're facing today as a man, no matter what hill you're trying to climb, no matter how hard it might seem when you're contending for your family and loving them well and being a brother and being that employee and that employer and all of those things, being that minister, wherever the Lord's called you to minister, because He's called all of us, He's going to be enough for you. He really is. He's going to be more than enough for you.
I want to, before we close out, in that same vein, I had this verse that I had taken a screenshot of whenever this happened. It was Malachi 3:10. He said, bring all the tithes into the storehouse so there will be enough food in my tent.
I love it.
If you do, says the Lord of heaven's armies, I will open the windows of heaven for you, and I will pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it in.
I love that, Eli. That's good.
Yeah.
So just receive His blessing today, man. Just get in posture to receive it.
We'll see you guys hopefully on the next Monday. We'll try to get these
back
rolling
again. We got some normalcy coming.
Regular program. And also, since I don't know if we mentioned it, but the 40 days toward fasting.
Yes.
Try to tune into
those. Pick that up, man. 7:07 every morning. It'll bless you. The Lord set us to pray. And maybe we'll talk about that next time a little bit. But we love all y'all so much.
See you guys.